And Dead by Sunrise, you have Out of Ashes coming out October 13th. And so the story goes that you, Trester, started these songs about 4 or 5 years ago, and then you two took them and put them in the blender
and stole them from him.
and then
And then the only way that I could get them back was they blackmailed me into creating a band with them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that the story?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yes, in a nutshell.
That was actually a really very good way of putting it. No, yeah, I mean, that's pretty close. You know, had always just intended to write songs for Linkin Park, you know, and so, but the reality is that these songs aren't, you know, they're not Linkin Park songs, and I think it's pretty obvious when you hear the record what I mean when I say that. And the reason why they're not is because of a combination of two things. One, I just sat down and wrote these songs on an acoustic guitar, came up with melodies the same way. So I felt like if I liked it that way, that they were probably pretty good. And most of the time when I brought stuff in, we pretty much worked on it.
Yep.
And then the other thing is once I did that, everybody in the band just had full reign. I never said no to anything. I don't think any of us ever really said no to anything. When someone had an idea, we just kind of let that person run with it. And if it was cool, then we kept it. And if it wasn't, then we kept working until we found something right. And I think those two things happening, and especially when these guys got their hands on Let Down, which is the first song I think we really had close to being finished first. What I sat down with and what they sent me back 3 days later, I was just like, I can't believe that this is happening. Like, this song has taken on a life of its own. It's its own. That's
Yeah,
And I turned it off too.
you are.
He does this in every interview.
He did it last year too.
I just didn't want to be ignored. So
Okay, so anyways. Okay, okay. Breathe. Okay, we're back. We're back.
And
We're back. Okay, so anyways, so really, I mean, after you know, I heard what had happened, literally, I said, I couldn't have asked for something cooler. This is the coolest sounding thing. You guys have made the song so different, and at that moment, they stopped becoming they stopped existing as my songs, and they started existing as our songs. And shortly thereafter, I mean, we literally were just like, okay, we're not making a solo record here. Like, we're a band, and like we're working on a record together. And the only thing that didn't change was that I brought songs in, you know, and so if the record doesn't do well, it's completely my fault.
But if it's awesome, you do.
Then we did it.
Well, it was a nice surprise to find out, because, you know, Ryan and Amir from Orgy, but I just, you know, I hadn't heard from you guys in a little while. You weren't on my radar. I know you had the Julian K thing and all that stuff. So it was nice to know that you guys were friends, and that's kind of what was born out of that relationship.
Yeah, it was totally organic.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been friends for 10, maybe longer, 10 years.
Yeah.
And we became friends almost the first day that we met. I heard this guy walking down the hallway at NRG. They were recording Hybrid Theory, and we were recording Vapor Transmission, which is Orgy's second record. And I heard this screaming coming from like down the hallway, and I'm a total social butterfly, and at that time when I used to drink a lot more than I do now, and of course I'd be drunk. Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah, and so did he. So it worked really well. We meshed together perfectly because, you know,
Yeah,
dude,
exactly.
who are you?
Rock
I'll
and
give you
roll.
a beer.
Right.
You know, oh, we're friends. You know, it's like, so we hit it off really quickly. I mean, I wanted to investigate where this voice was coming from, and then when I met Chester, we just started talking out in front of the studio for a couple hours, and then we just kind of stayed in touch ever since. We played together, we did all sorts of stuff together, and when I heard him, you know, playing these songs at his house, I forget how long ago it was, but I was just like, dude, what are you gonna do with that stuff? Is that like a Linkin Park song? What is that? And of course, I was hoping that I could like work on it with him because I loved it. Right. And we had always talked about doing something together, just as friends. We were like, sometime we've got to play music together because that's what we do. We're such good friends. I love your music, you love my music. And these songs just turned out to be like the impetus for something awesome.
That's a gift. That's a cool gift for a friendship.
It was weird because timing is everything, you know. So the fact that Linkin Park was kind of on this hiatus, and the fact that these guys were working on a new project, and there was no like hard deadline for either of us. We both kind of just took advantage. We all took advantage of the opportunity that was presented to us, and it was like, you guys can work on these songs.
We kind of have our little hideaway studios too, you know. It's like we have studios in both our houses, and we live really close to each other, so it's real easy. You know, Chester would just come over. Actually, at the time, I think he was staying with Ryan, and would come over, and you know, it's just not a typical recording environment. There's no outside influence, and we just get to work. And
The band members are the engineers and the producers. We did we did like 90% of all the pre-production on this record at either Ryan's studio or programming stuff in Amir's studio or in Foo's studio at his house. So like, it was kind of cool to like, because there are guys in the band that are like Amir and Brandon and Foo, who are all very well versed in engineering as well as production. It's like, we kind of were already producing ourselves to a certain degree. Like we weren't just going to go ask all of the executives that we have to ask when we want to make records, like especially a new band. Like, hey, do you guys want to put this out too? You know, I mean, we're not going to walk in there with like 60 demos and have them
you're
try
capable
to
of doing it
It's like
yourselves.
walking up to a field and going, can't you see them all? And everyone's looking at you like, no, dude, I can't see them all. Actually,
you have to make them see
I've
them
never
all.
seen it.
And keep in mind, we look like us.
And so
It
so
goes
it
over
kind of
like that.
has to, you know, we kind of know we have to, I mean, you know, we know we have to be very critical of ourselves. These guys work very similar in the way that Linkin Park works, which is like sitting in a studio, creating, recording it, manipulating it, not really learning what the part is, but kind of like playing it a few times. If you like it, you've got it. You start building that way. Really very studio based in terms of how we construct songs. So it wasn't like, you know, I came from jamming in like in a room, and that's how I wrote, to coming into like computer land, and I'm just like, it was
all
everything
of us
meshed.
right that way, so it made it easy because LP, Orgy, Julian K, we all create in the studio, and it's really hard to like jam the kind of music we do because a lot of it is based off rhythms and sounds and ideas that you can't really just come up with in a rehearsal spot with a guitar. You have to kind of a lot of these things start, you know, maybe with a beat or something that may not even end up in the song by the end. But in the beginning, we'll plug in some little drum machine or something, and like that little Indian drum machine that we have or whatever, that kind of started off the darkness, you know, and there's just one little thing. And then from that, it just kind of starts to grow. And sometimes it remains, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it'll go a whole new thing. But